I want to preface this by saying I've seen a lot of bad tutorials, but this has got to be the worst. What makes this tutorial so bad is not only the lack of knowledge, but the fact that it's viral. This means that people are watching the tutorial, trusting his knowledge, and trying the movements in hopes of getting higher kicks, when really, you're just gonna get injuries. These are just my thoughts. I'll explain them in the video. 2.7 million views for how to kick higher. Let's see if it's worth it. From the thumbnail, unsure.
What's going on?
Okay, before he starts, I just want to see a description. See if there's anything. You could kick higher for blah, 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 blah. Okay, this better be good, because like, that's a lot of views. Okay, all right.
Today I'm going to give you a thorough explanation on flexibility and a full stretching routine that you can do in order to get your kicks up higher. Now with that being said, you don't have to be able to do full splits and straddles in order to kick someone in the head. However, mobility, dynamic warm-up before we get into our static holding stretches, because you want to make sure your body is warm before you start going into those splits and straddles. I just woke up, so I need to make sure I get a proper warm-up there. Let's get it started.
Okay, fight tips. I'm really hoping that this video is better than the intro that I just heard, but I'm not going to say anything just yet. I'm going to give it a shot, but let's just see how it goes. Let's see how it goes.
Getting started with our dynamic warm-up, I want you to remember these as light calisthenics, things like squats and lunges to warm up the muscles. And when you do your squats, you want to go nice and deep, nice and low, and the calf raises will help with mobility. It goes past your knees.
You're doing this cold, but you need to do full range of motion on your squat. How can you do full range if you're cold?
90-degree bend. You're not going to injure your knees, just make sure you drive your knees outward. And if you don't have any extra weight, you should be fine.
Okay, so I like that he's warming up first before you stretch and things like that. And bodyweight squats are great, but full range, like what's the target audience? Who are we talking to here? Because not a lot of people can go into a full butt to ground squat at cold. Like you shouldn't be doing that. You should be doing something a little bit less strenuous that way, like skipping, running, jumping jacks, things like that, that actually warm your body up. This lunge you could also do, but again, you would have to go as deep as you're able to without like hurting yourself. So you still need to warm up better before you're doing things like this. So again, I don't know who his target audience is, but if you're looking at this from a beginner perspective, you should probably be doing a different warm up than what he's doing right now. But again, let's keep going.
Hands on the hips, we're just going to do hip rotations.
Okay.
You're going to touch your heel to the ground and you're going to come right back up, forward, heel touch.
So this again, I'm going to still say the same thing. I don't know who his target is, because if this is a beginner, if this is someone who's unable to bring their knee up that high, this is not a good warm up for you, because then you're going to be going past what you're able to do, and you're supposed to be just warming up at this point and not cranking your leg up as high as you can. It's gonna really hurt your hip at this point. You could do this movement. There's no problem with this movement, and if you are more flexible, that this for me is not an issue. This movement for me, not an issue. But again, I'm extremely flexible. If you are very flexible, or even just mid flexibility, this should be okay. But I also like to talk about the people that are beginning, the ones that aren't able to do any of these things. It needs to be less intimidating. So we need to make sure that we're staying on point. And if this is, again, just a warm-up, I'm not sure how somebody would be able to do this. You could do the movement, but less severe. You don't got to go all 90. You could just move it until you're able to and do your range there and just warm yourself up. But again, there are better warm-ups to do than something that's engaging this much flexibility off rip.
It's going to help with balance as well.
It will help with balance, I agree.
Toes are facing outward. We're going to drop down to one side. It's too challenging. If you feel like when you get to about this point, you're already getting a stretch, then I want you to do other things.
So I do side lunges. We actually call them dragon stances because that's the type of stance that we have. We usually do these when we're already super warmed up, so then you can do your full range. Again, as a warm-up, I don't see it. I don't think that's a good idea at this point. Your legs are still in the middle of being warmed up. You can do literally any other warm-up to warm your body up. Why are we going into these right off rip? I don't get it.
If you get flexible.
He said if you want to get flexible, but at the beginning he said you don't have to have a full stretch or a full straddle to be able to kick high.
Warm up. You want to be using a foam roller if you have one, or deep tissue massage, or even just take a hot shower. Get the muscles warm. What we're going to do is probably my most hated one is a hamstring stretch. So,
same.
You want to make sure that your knees are not bent. The second that your knees start to bend, the stretch goes right out the window. You're not hitting your hamstrings anymore. But make sure that your legs are straight. I
agree. You do obviously need to have that hamstring flexibility to be able to throw anything where your hips are straight on. So your front kick, your axe kick. You do need a bit of hamstring flexibility for side kick, roundhouse kick, and things like that. It's a little less engaged than your groin is for those kicks, but it's definitely good to have hamstring flexibility when throwing high kicks, for sure. When he's saying that if your knees are bent when you're reaching for your toes and you completely lose engagement, that's actually not true. As long as you keep a steady high back, like an honest back, and your toes are facing up, your heels are nice and strong, and you reach in that way, you could actually still engage the hamstring. It's a little less impact on those who are still just beginning their journey. So you can have bent knees because it can be pretty hard to have straight knees and just lean forward if there's no one there to help support your back. So you can bend your knees, just make sure your back is nice and straight, and then you can pull your body in, and then you could extend your knees from there. It's just like super beginner to start that way. Again, don't know his target audience, but that's a good place to start if you're just beginning with these kind of stretches.
I want to feel myself fall closer into my knees, deeper into my stretch. So, and then never releasing, never coming back.
I like what he said, how you don't come back as you push into it. So when you've hit your stretch, you don't want to come out of it for the full 30 seconds. You want to hit your stretch and stay there and stay honest. If it's too difficult to stay in there, you need to try your best to find the spot that you could hold for 30 seconds that's giving you resistance, like that's difficult, but not so difficult that you come out of it, because then you're losing your stretch and losing everything that you just worked for. So I agree with him.
If you start from here in the beginning, then you slowly work your way out. Again, this is why you should be doing your stretches. At it, you'll get more flexible. Eventually, you'll get to a point where you can get that full 180 degrees straight leg across.
Yes, I do straddle sit all the time, and I do the reaches. Definitely beneficial for stretching your groin, your hamstring, a little bit of your calf if you're pulling your toes back. Definitely great. I'm just confused as to why he said at the beginning that the straddle wasn't significant in being able to kick high, and now it's you want to try and work on your straddle sit and pushing your legs back. So you do want to make sure that you're able to have that full range, or you won't have that 180 kick.
But we want to make sure that we're stretching our abs, and we do that by...
You do utilize your core when throwing kicks, without a doubt. I don't see the significance in this stretch to kick higher. I see this as like an end of workout type, relaxing type stretch, but will this help increase your, will this give you the ability to kick high or supplement your training? I don't think so. This stretch is not relevant.
Push away and twist so that we feel it in our lower back.
Similar idea. Don't see the value in adding this to your routine if your goal is to kick higher. You should be stretching the muscles you need to be able to kick higher and get that range of motion. You should also be working on your strengthening of your outer hip and strengthening of your core, strengthening of your lower back. You don't have to have a flexible lower or flexible back to be able to kick higher. You don't want to have tension in your lower back, because then that could potentially, cause tension in your hamstring and your calf. So you could release it in that sense, but you should be stretching all the other aspects. I again don't see the value in doing this in your routine to kick higher.
Now let's talk about ballistic training. So this is a little controversial because in a college kinesiology class, they'll tell you to never do ballistic stretches. They say you'll be prone to injury because you're forcing your muscles to do things that they can't do naturally. And what a ballistic stretch is pretty much bouncing. It's what we talked about with the butterfly stretch. It's doing this. Maybe I can't get to this low of a position unless I'm rocking, bouncing into it. And the argument there is, well, if you keep doing it, you're gonna pull something because your muscles aren't flexible enough yet. And this is true. However, it's a good way to get to that position. It's a good way to get to that point. Ballerinas and gymnasts all do their ballistic stretches. People in college in kinesiology classes are telling you not to do it. Who do you think has better flexibility? Probably the ballerinas and gymnasts. Yeah, that's not.
Who has so many injuries? Okay, so I personally don't do this type of stretching, and I don't teach my students to do this type of stretching. I see more value in iso stretches and things of that nature where you're engaging the muscle and tensing them up and then releasing. So I find it's not easier. It is very difficult to do iso stretches and iso holds, but I see the value in doing that because as you're causing tension in that muscle, you're teaching it to tense up and then you're releasing. And as you're releasing the muscle, you're able to go deeper into the stretches more naturally. When you're doing this kind of bouncing movement, I just find, and I found for myself, as well as everyone that I've taught, if they're just bouncing in and out of a stretch, their legs really don't actually, like, I haven't seen people progress farther in their stretches by doing this type of stretching routine. So if you're doing stretch holds or things that are more dynamic and active, I see more value in doing those types of things and those types of movements over this.
To say that you
It's all up to opinion though, of course. So, but I also just don't understand his reasoning, and his argument is who's more flexible. But like, also you have to take into consideration injuries and things of that nature, especially when you're training other people and you want them to stay healthy and you want their bodies to move in a pretty decent way. I'm teaching more people that need to go to work the next day. So if you're looking for a more longevity type of thing where you're looking at a healthy body and a healthy lifestyle, you want to go into things more smart.
Should be doing these all the time. I do them once a week. I limit them to once a week, so I find the middle ground. I understand that ballistic stretching can be done if you do it controlled and you do it correctly. However, it can cause injuries, so you need to be careful with that. What I recommend is doing a full warm-up, like I said, with a foam roller, deep tissue massage, dynamic warm-up.
I agree. So of course you do want to have like a warmed up body and things like that. And you don't, I don't know. You won't be injured every time you do these things if you're doing them properly. So if you have a coach that can supplement your training with this type of ballistic stretching, then go for it. But you need to just be smart when you're going into them and not push past what your body is able to do.
Focusing on our right leg, I'm just going to swing back and forward. I'm going to try to get higher and higher with each kick. And then what you can do from here is stretch it, but only do these once a week. Unless...
Disagree. You can do these as much as you would like throughout the week. It's actually really good at releasing the like hip and making you warm and like moving your body around and warming up the muscles that are needed to stretch. So that type of movement is okay. That type of movement is good. It's a dynamic stretching routine. All you do is raise your leg up and down. You just don't push past the point. Don't crank your leg up and then take your arm and then like physically move it. Like just relax into those stretches. This I disagree with. I think you could do these at any time, as many times as you'd like throughout the week. Those type of stretches are, I think, really great.
You feel comfortable to do more or
I think what he's saying is maybe pushing past your limit. Like, don't do that, but you shouldn't be doing that, not even like once a week. Like, you should just be going to where your body is saying, I can't push it any farther, and then that's it. Final thoughts. For 2.7 million views, I am disappointed with the level of instruction that I saw. I don't think that this is really good for beginners at all. It doesn't really give anyone a good baseline of like where it starts versus where it's going. There are some things that I said throughout this that I agree with, like the stretching of the hamstring and that kind of idea, but it doesn't give anybody a really good example of how to increase the height of your kick and stretching that you can do to get more flexible for your kicks. You should be isolating your muscles that are needed to throw the kicks, as well as practicing your technique, strengthening the things that need to be strengthened. Those are the things that will actually increase the height of your kick and increase your flexibility for kicks specifically. I think a lot of what he said is very like wishy-washy, and like I just don't agree with a lot of it, especially those dynamic like leg raises at the end, and saying that you could only do those once a week is unrealistic to me, and I disagree. So yeah, this one I don't agree with. Sorry. I think I've made my stance on this video quite clear. Leave a comment and let me know what you think, and be sure to leave me a tutorial that I could review next. Before we go, I'm going to do my Patreon shout out of the week. Thank you so much, Christian and M, for being on my Patreon page and making videos like these possible. I appreciate you more than you know. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye, everyone. Leave me a note in the comments. Leave me a note. Dear Silvana.